Have you ever had a dream that didn't feel like a dream at all? A dream that felt too real, too clear, too peaceful. The kind that stays with you for years, long after you've opened your eyes. Tonight, in episode 2 of my Between Worlds series, we're stepping into that place between sleep and spirit, where loved ones sometimes reach out. Welcome back to Between Worlds and to episode 2 of the series here at Lisa's Haunted Cottage, where intuition, mediumship, dreams, and the unexplained all come together. So it's Christmas season now, and I've got a little tree here. Not my typical lighting, but I love Christmas. And over here we've got Beatrice Reindeer. I love her. Anyhow, I just wanted to share that. So tonight we're exploring dream visitations. They're not symbolic dreams, not your subconscious, but those vivid, unmistakable moments where someone you've loved and lost steps into your dream so clearly, so lovingly, that you wake up knowing that was them. And yes, I'll be sharing some of my own experiences later on. So, what does a dream visitation feel like? They have a very unique feel. They're calm, clear, and vivid in a way that almost feels out of place. Neuroscientist Dr. Patrick McNamara, who studies dreams and spirituality, notes that dreams involving deceased loved ones are often usually intense, structured, and emotionally powerful compared to normal dreams. Many people describe the colors as sharper, the presence as stronger, and the emotions as unmistakably real. The person who appears often looks whole, healthy, and at peace, sometimes younger, sometimes glowing. And interestingly, research shows that people commonly wake up immediately after a visitation dream. It's like the moment the message is delivered, consciousness snaps back into your body. What stays behind isn't fear at all, but peace. A deep, soothing sense of, they're still with me. So let me tell you about the time that I had a dream that I knew was more than just a dream. In my dream visitation, my grandmother came to me in a dream. She was my mom's mother, and really the only grandparent I knew for the majority of my life. Her husband, my grandpa, died when I was 9, and I never knew my dad's parents. My dad's mom died 10 years before I was even born, and his dad died when I was 2. So I really don't have any memory of my dad's parents. I've seen them in pictures. That's about it. So after the age of 9, when my mother's dad died, all I had left was my grandmother, my mom's mom. She was often my babysitter growing up. Um, I spent a lot of time with her, myself, my cousins. We were there every New Year's Eve while our parents were out ringing in the new year. And we would stay at grandma's house. Um, and she would let us drink. It was basically grape juice. Um, and we all remember her watching Lawrence Welk. It's one of our common memories we have of her. Um, but she was very special to me because I spent so much time with her, because she was the only grandparent I ever knew after the age of 9. So, uh, she was extremely special to me, and her death hit me quite hard. It was the first death I had to experience as an adult. I was in my 30s, and her death pretty much crushed me, I'll say. Extremely difficult for me when she died. So at this point, when she visited me in my dream, it was about 5 years after she had died. I had always wanted her to come visit me, um, to give me a message. At this time, I was actively working on my mediumship abilities. So I was frequently online in different chat rooms where I would practice with other people. And when you do this, it's a give and take. You give messages to the person that you're talking to, and then they'll give messages back. And I always wish for her to come and give me a message, and it never happened. Um, and I believe that never happened because she knows I'm a very emotional person, just like she was. Um, and I don't think that she would want to do anything to upset me, even though it was what I was wishing for. I think she would worry about upsetting me. So I think she waited until she felt I was more ready for that to happen. That's just, how she was. She was a worrywart. So am I. A lot of my personality I get from my grandmother. So, uh, a memory that all of us, my cousins and myself and my sister, have of my grandmother is her growing gorgeous peonies at their house. The cemetery where they're buried, they do allow you to plant things like peonies and shrubs and flowers. You can actually plant them in the ground. A lot of cemeteries won't allow that. This particular cemetery does allow that. It's a gorgeous cemetery. But this day, when I had this dream, I had gone to the cemetery. I planted some daisies for her, and I said, Grandma, I think you would, like these flowers, and I hope you do like them. Um, so I was at the cemetery for a while, and when I went home, uh, I was kind of laying on the couch watching TV and really still thinking about her, and I ended up falling asleep. So in this dream, I knew I was outside. The first thing I saw was actually my family. Like my family members, my parents, my sister, my cousins, and I thought, why is everybody here? Like, what's going on? They were sitting at a big long table, like a banquet table, and everybody was outside eating, talking to each other, back and forth, having a good time, laughing. And it sort of felt like our graduation parties would feel like, or, a wedding where everybody's just eating and talking and, having a good time. And I was confused. I thought, well, why is everybody here? Why, what's going on? Like, is this a graduation party? Who's graduated? Very, very strange. Um, and I also noticed my dog, he was a poodle that he had been dead, for over 15 years, as well as my grandmother's poodle. and they were related. Okay. They got them, my parents and my grandparents got them from the same litter, but they had both passed away. They were both there. I thought, oh, the dogs are here. But the difference with the dogs was that, the dogs weren't alive anymore, where everybody in my family who was there, they were still alive. So as I'm kind of walking around and I go up to the table, I'm saying hello to everybody. I notice there's like a huge mansion not too far back in the distance. And I didn't ask anybody. I don't know why, because it seemed like they were all there before I got there. And I didn't ask them, like, what's this mansion? None of us have a mansion. That's for sure. But I noticed this huge mansion not too far back from where they were all sitting. There was lots of gold on it. There was like a path that went up to the front of the mansion, the doors. And I thought, wow, what is this mansion? Like, it's gorgeous. All of the colors in this dream were extremely vivid. Um, I'd never seen any colors like this, in my waking state. And I was like, wow, check out all these colors. It was a gorgeous day. The grass was green, all of this gold on this mansion. And I thought this mansion's it stuck out to me because it wouldn't be a normal thing in my surroundings. Um, at a family gathering. So then I turn around and I notice a small house closer to where everybody was sitting. It wasn't my grandparents' house, but it was a small house similar to their house. So I thought, oh, I wonder what house this is. And I kind of go up and I'm either at the side door of this house or the back door. And I notice it was a screen door. It was a wooden screen door, which my grandparents didn't have that. But I open up the wooden screen door, and standing right there is my grandmother. And I went, "Oh my god, grandma." And I'm shocked, because she's not alive. And in the dream I knew the difference of my family that was sitting there eating, they're alive. The dogs are there, but they are no longer alive. And I went, "Oh my god, grandma." And I go in, I close the door, and when I opened the door, it was like she was coming out as I was going in, kind of like she was literally right there at the door. And I went, "Grandma, oh my god, I miss you so much." And I hug her, and she looked gorgeous. When I say that it's the color, like, I mentioned here, um where I said the neuroscientist mentioned people can, look glowing. She was definitely glowing, and she literally had like an aura around her head, um similar to a halo or an aura. It was almost like a rainbow of colors. And I immediately noticed it. Like, wow, she's got all these colors around her head. So I'm hugging her and I'm like, "Oh my god, grandma, I miss you," and I start to cry. And I'm hugging her, and then we're standing there. She didn't as I'm hugging her, and I'm telling her, "Oh, grandma, I miss you. I miss you. I miss you." She didn't say anything. I stop hugging her and I kind of stand back a little. And she looks at me and she says, "Lisa, I want you to know that I love you just as much today as the day you were born." She said, "I don't ever want you to forget that." And I'm getting emotional right now. Sorry, trying to control it. But this is how deeply I still feel this dream. And this dream that I had was about 2005. This is how I still feel strongly about this when I'm recalling this. Um, so she said, I want you to know that. I want you to know I love you just as much today as the day you were born. And I don't want you to ever forget that. And I'm sobbing when she said, as she's telling me this, I start sobbing in this dream. And she says, I have to go now. And I said, no, Grandma, don't go. And I'm like, don't go, don't leave me. And she turns and she said, I have to go now. And she opened up the screen door and she walked out. And I'm like, no, Grandma, don't. And I'm yelling for her not to leave me. Like, don't leave me again. And I open up the door and I look out and she's gone. She's nowhere to be found. And I step outside, the door, and I'm looking around and I still see all my family sitting there eating and carrying on like they have been. And I'm like, where did she go? And I'm sobbing at this point because I didn't want her to leave. And I look out and she's pretty much vanished. The other thing that happened that I forgot to mention when she was telling me, that she still loves me like she did the day I was born, she grabbed my arm. When people are older or old and you're kind of walking with them and you want to make sure they don't fall, you kind of grab them around the arm, or they grab you underneath your arm and you're kind of walking like, arm in arm. Um Similar to a wedding when people are walking down, when the dad walks the daughter down the aisle kind of thing, or, whatever. She had done that in the dream. And she always did that when when we'd go to church with her, or we'd be at somebody's wedding or something, and I'd be helping her walk. She'd always grab my arm, underneath and hold on to it really tight. And she had done that when she was telling me, I still love you like the day you were born. Right before she started speaking, she had grabbed my arm like that. So when I woke up, because that was all she said, and then she left and vanished, couldn't find her. And right after I went out that door looking for her and I didn't see her, and I look and I see all my family, and they're still carrying on. I woke up instantly. First of all, when I woke up, I was sobbing. I woke up that way. So it transferred over from my dream to when I woke up. I didn't start sobbing after I woke up. I woke up sobbing. I was already sobbing, crying. I was crying so hard. I was having a hard time breathing. One of those where you're crying and you're like, it's like you start hyperventilating. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to like catch my breath because I'm sobbing and sobbing. And then I'm thinking about what just happened and it would make me cry more. And then I went, oh my God. I can still feel her grabbing onto my arm. Even though that was a dream and I'm now awake, it still feels like she's holding onto my arm. And it felt that way for at least 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my God. And feeling that I could still feel that, even so now I'm awake and I'm sitting up on the couch because it, when I woke up sobbing, I pretty much shot up, into the sitting position, like what just happened, trying to catch my breath, tears streaming down my face, and then feeling her arm still latched onto mine. And that made me cry more, even though I was in the process of trying to stop crying. It was kind of like, this vicious circle of, emotional upset. And I was so blessed that she visited me. Um, and I say emotional upset because she left in the dream. She left. She's like, I have to go. That's what upset me. And just the fact of seeing her, I was so emotionally overcome that it shook me. And even though that was such a long time ago when I had that dream, I still remember every single detail like it was yesterday, like it was today, like it was an hour ago. That's the thing with spirit visitations and dreams. You don't forget them. It's not like a typical your regular run of the mill dream. You don't have to write them down. You'll never forget them. Never. That's one of the big clues that you're having a dream visitation is you won't forget it. Sometimes if you have a dream, you wake up in the middle of the night like, wow, what was that crazy dream? And then by morning, you get up again, it's like, what was that dream I know I woke up in the middle of the night. What was that dream I was having? And sometimes you can remember pieces of it, but a lot of the time you completely forget what it was. So it this dream with my grandmother, that's the only spirit visitation like that I've had from someone in my family, you know, who had passed away. Never before that and never after that. And her message was simple and clear, that she still loved me, even, just like she did when I was born, and that would never change. And I think that she did it at that time because I had wished for 5 years for her to come and visit me and give me a message, whether directly to me or through someone else. And that had not happened. So I think she just wanted to come to comfort me. That's what my grandma would do. She did look the same to me. She looked older. My grandmother died 3 days before her 97th birthday. Um, so she didn't appear younger to me. She looked the same. She looked happy. As I said, she was glowing. The mansion. So I've thought about this dream for many, many years. And I always wondered, like, what was the deal with the mansion? you know, why was that there? It didn't fit into my, what I would normally encounter on a family get together, so to speak. But there's something in the Bible about my father's house has many rooms. So if you think of many rooms, that could be a mansion. I was raised Catholic. My grandmother was Catholic, went to church every week. She was very religious, as is my mother. Um, and after I thought about it and realized like, hey, there's something in the Bible about many rooms, and all the gold that was on the mansion. It was around the windows and um, decorated with a lot of gold. And I think that was a message of, you know, something subtle from my grandmother or from God just to let me know that she's okay. Um, that she's in that mansion, that highly associated with God because of her faith. So that's the way I chose to interpret that. Um, and even though I was curious about the mansion, that's really not what was important to me. What was important was my grandmother and the fact that, she came to visit me in that dream and she came with that specific message. Okay. Because she wanted to kind of comfort me and console me and say, even though you're not hearing from me like you want to, I'm still here. So as to why visitations happen in dreams, uh, it's when there's no external noise going on. It's when our minds are quiet. It's when we're more open to receiving visitations from any spirit. And psychologists who study grief have found that dream contact with deceased loved ones is incredibly common. He calls these continuing bonds experiences, meaning the relationship isn't gone, it just shifts forms. The continuing bonds theory, widely accepted in modern grief psychology, explains that maintaining a connection to loved ones after death is healthy, and dreams are one of the most natural ways that connection shows up. Dream researchers found that these visitation dreams appear across nearly every culture on Earth, and they share the same traits: clarity, peace, guidance, and a sense of presence that feels realer than real. And that is true. Psychiatrist Dr. Raymond Moody, the father of near death experience research, says these dreams often happen in limited states. I'm not limited, liminal states. Those in between spaces where consciousness is most open to contact. As I said, when your mind is quiet, when the world is quiet, you're not hearing all the noise of the day to day. When your mind is quiet, your guard is down, your heart is open, and the veil is thinner than you might think. So I'm going to go over 7 signs that it really was a visitation. Um, I'm also going to say that if you don't have these signs, but you still feel that you've had a dream visitation, go by what you feel. What you feel is the most important thing here, okay? Because you know best. But these are the most documented signs found both in research and in thousands of personal accounts. So, one, the dream is extremely vivid. Dream labs and studies report that visitation dreams are hyper realistic. 2, you receive a clear message, sometimes spoken and sometimes felt. Like in the case of my dream visitation, there was definitely a clear message. 3, the loved one appears healthy and at peace, even if they were ill before their passing. 4, you feel calm during and after the dream, not afraid, just held and safe. 5, the moment is simple and direct, not chaotic like typical REM dreams. So you're not being chased by anything crazy. 6, you wake up right after the dream. So a common neurological pattern following emotional, intense dream events is that you wake up right after the dream. 7, you remember it for years. These dreams imprint on memory like real experience. That's true. Because I had already said you don't need to write it down. You're going to remember it for years to come. So there's a few ways that you could invite dream communication safely. Uh, Putting aside any research, your intention matters the most. So if you have the intention of wanting to communicate in a dream, whether this is past relatives, ancestors, spirit guides, angels, any of those, your intent is what matters. What you intend to do, what you want to happen, that's what matters the most here. Okay. So you can set a clear intention before going to sleep. You can say, please visit me in my dreams. I'm open and I'm listening. You can keep a notebook nearby. So if you write down your day to day dreams, if you wake up in the middle of the night and after you've had a dream, you can write it down. It will kind of strengthen your recall for remembering dreams and future experiences with dreams as well. You can also ground your energy, okay? Whatever works for you. Breathing, meditation, crystals, prayer, whatever works for you, a hot bath or shower before going to bed. Um, whatever works for you is the best choice, okay? Um, Even reading before you go to bed and, something to keep you calm and relaxed. Last one is don't force it. Spirit communication follows emotional openness, not pressure. So you can't force it, that thing that you want to accomplish the most. If you concentrated on it too much and you're too like hyper focused, you're going to it kind of puts up a wall or a block um because you're too hyper focused on it. You have to, by being so hyper focused, you're not going to be as relaxed because you're too up in your head, worry about, oh, is it going to happen? I want it to happen. Um, that type of thing. So typically when it's not a dream visitation is if it's emotionally processing, if your dream you're emotionally processing something, memory replay, subconscious sorting of things, stress or trauma responses, and coping mechanisms. So you can still see a loved one in a dream, but not every dream of a loved one is a spirit visitation. Those spirit visitation dreams are really different. Okay. They're very peaceful, they're clear. You know the difference. You feel it. Um, they heal and not confuse, and they're going to comfort you rather than disturb you. So you could have a dream of a loved one who's in your dream, and they could even be talking to you, but it's a bit different than an actual dream visitation. They're in your dream, but it's not an actual visit. It doesn't have that specific purpose. I would say that the dream visitations have a very specific purpose, and that spirit, they have a message for you, a specific message. Okay. And you definitely, like I said, you will not forget them. You will notice the difference. I notice the difference. Excuse me. I knew I was going to cough eventually. Um, you notice the difference with the colors. Everything is more vivid. It's you can't confuse the difference. It's really obvious once you have a dream visitation that that was no regular dream. So that brings me to the end of episode 2 of Between Worlds. Dream visitations are one of the most gentle, loving ways the spirit world reaches out. They remind us that love doesn't disappear, it transforms. And sometimes, in the quiet stillness of sleep, it finds a way to touch us again. If you've ever had a dream that felt like a visit, share it down below in the comments. Your experience might help someone else with their experience. Until next time, keep those candles lit, stay open, stay curious, and stay just a little bit between worlds.